Tus ist tus ujura. Fire, fire, and fire again. The Schwarzlose Model 1907/12 was a water-cooled belt-fed weapon designed by the German that was named Andreas Wilhelm Schwarzlose. It was usually mounted on a tripod and looked broadly similar to the family of Maxim derivative machine guns, such as the British Vickers and the Germans Maschinengewehr or IT. The Schwarzlose, however, was a simpler design and featured an unusual delayed blowback mechanism, which contained only a single spring. The initial variant of the model 1907/12 was a cyclical rate of about 400 rounds per minute, but was later then increased to 580 rounds per minute during World War I by fitting a mechanism with a stronger spring. The Schwarzlose was a robust and reliable weapon in its intended role as an infantry weapon, but unlike its highly adaptable Maxim derivative machine guns like the Vickers and Maschinengewehr or it was met with less success because of its inadaptability, and of course it was not being designed for other things other than infantry use. The simplicity of its design, however, made it a weapon very inexpensive to manufacture. The Schwarzlose enjoyed moderate export success in the years leading up to World War I. Apart from the armies of the Austro Hungarian Empire, which used the 8mm caliber, it was adopted from the armies of Greece, which used the 6.5mm caliber, the Netherlands, which used again the 6.5mm caliber, and the Swedish as well, which used the 6.5 by 55mm cartridge, and was designated the Colt Stupstar Model 1914. In addition, the British ammunition company Krynoch produced a machine gun based on the Schwarzlose pattern 1907, using the 303 British cartridge. The Netherlands used a modified version of the Schwarzlose Machine Gun or IT in production from 1918 onward, and 2006 were made. After the First World War, the Schwarzlose continued in use in the new nations that emerged from the fragmented Austro Hungarian Empire. Captured examples of the Schwarzlose saw some sporadic use by the Russians and Italians during the First World War as well. During World War II, the Schwarzlose saw limited action in North Africa as an anti-aircraft weapon in Italian service. It was used as a standard MG issued to the Italian colonial troops as well. Besides captured Schwarzlose machine guns in various types saw service within the second units of Nazi Germany as well, especially during the desperate fighting that took place in the final phase of the conflict. Machine guns were popular weapons before, during and after World War I, but the problem with machine guns was that every action was already taken and already patented, so Schwarzlose had to use the Maschinengewehr or 7 to actually have a toggle blowback delay system, and it was a water-cooled machine gun as well. The mechanism also incorporated a device that oils the cartridge cases and able to ease extraction, and he actually got the patent. There are three types of noose for this machine gun: infantry, sea, and air. We look at the Landwehr and the Honved first, or infantry. For infantry use in the Honved and the Landwehr, the Schwarzlose was usually employed as a traditional tripod-mounted, heavy machine gun served by a crew of at least 3 soldiers or more, one of whom was the commander, usually an NCO, a gunner who carried the weapon and fired the weapon, and a third soldier who would serve as an ammunition carrier and loader, and would sometimes presumably also carry the tripod as well, although in practice a 4th soldier might be added to the team to carry the tripod. Another less commonly seen method of deployment was the more compact backpack mount. In this configuration, the gun was fitted with a backpack folding bipod attached to the front of the water jacket, near the muzzle. The backpack itself consisted of a square wooden frame with a metal socket in the center. When the gun was fully deployed, the frame was laid on the ground. The gun's central mounting position was now usually attached to a tripod now, and had a smaller mounting pin attached to it instead of what was inserted into the mounting socket in the center of the wooden backpack frame, and finally a bipod that was folded forward. The gun was a fortress weapon, a naval weapon, and of course, an air weapon. After World War I, the Schwarzlose equipped the armed forces of Czechoslovakia, where it was adopted as the VS-7/24 and manufactured as the VS-24, at the Český V-724, the heavy machine gun model 724 by the Janek factory, adapted from the 8mm caliber of the standard Czechoslovak munition of 7.92 Mauser. When Czechoslovakia started building the fortifications against Nazi Germany in 1935 to 1938, light fortifications known as Types 36 and 37 were particularly armed with the Schwarzlose V-724. Apart from its use as a heavy infantry machine gun and an aircraft weapon, the Schwarzlose saw service in the Austro-Hungarian Luftwaffen during World War I as an aircraft machine gun, as the Schwarzlose was used both as a fixed-firing weapon machine gun, but it was also flexible enough to be a ring-mounted defensive weapon. Because of the relatively long delay blowback system of the Schwarzlose Model 1907/12, The synchronizing systems that were developed could be operated safely only in a narrow band of engine RPM. Therefore, the Austro Hungarian fighters were equipped with a large and prominent tachometer in the cockpit. The Model 1916 version of the gun could be synchronized with a greater accuracy, but a widened engine RPM restriction still had to be respected. The results were never entirely satisfactory, and the Austro-Hungarian aircraft thus armed itself with the carrier of the convex indicator, an indigenous bullet strike sensor in the propeller, to warn the pilot of the malfunction of the synchronizing gear. Until these synchronizing problems could be overcome, it was not uncommon to see the Schwarzlose deployed, and a removable forward-firing Type 2 VK gun container, which had deployed by the Luftwaffe Vuskis Kopin at Freihenmenden. So that's basically it. The Type 2 VK gun container is basically just a backseat gunner, or even sometimes a front seat gunner in a fighter, and it would actually fire, and it was increased to 880 rounds per minute. But that's basically it. The heavy machine gun of World War I for the Austro-Hungarians, and that's pretty much it. The variants, the Austro-Hungarians had the MG-M7, the MG-M7/12, the MG-16, which was actually used in cockpits and planes, and the MG-16A, which was a modified version and a better version of the MG-16, and it was chambered in the 8x50mm Mannlicher. The British had the Chronic machine gun, which was manufactured in Chronic Ammunition Company and was presumably in Trio 3 British cartridge. The Czechoslovakians had the Schwarzlose Janek VZ7/24. I don't know what that VZ is for. I gotta research that one. That's an interesting one. And they was obviously modified by Franciscus Janek, which was a Czech, and of course it was modified by the 7.92x57mm Mauser, and had a lighter ball, a shorter recoil spring, and attentions to the barrel by 100mm. Manufacture and adoption by these guns took place by Janopolska Brno factory. During 1922 to 1934, there were 4,937 modified Schwarzlose M7/12 machine guns, or the VS7/24, and 2,550 were newly produced as the VS-24 machine guns. The Dutch, precisely the Netherlands, had the MG08, the MG08-13, and the MG08-13/15, which was modified in 6.5x53mm R, which is the Dutch, not really standard caliber, but more of a international caliber for most nations, especially Greece, like poor countries at that time. Even though Dutch was kind of rising above it, it was cheap ammunition basically. The MG-M7/31 was converted from the original 8.5mm Mannlicher to 8.56mm R, same as the Mannlicher 1895 rifles, the straight pull ball rifles. And the Swedish has the Schwarzlose, the model 1914 in 6.5x55mm, and about 1,300 were produced in the small state factory between 1914 to 1930. Whew, that was a mouthful. Now, there are a lot of countries here who knows the Schwarzlose. So let's go. Albania, probably World War I. Austro-Hungary, of course. Austria took it back, of course. Kingdom of Bulgaria, more than likely Lend-Lease for the Central Powers. China, I do see the Kuomintang flag, so maybe Chinese Civil War. Maybe Colombia, Colombian-Peru War of 1933. Czechoslovakia, well, we had basically a paragraph on Czechoslovakia, so that's kind of obvious. Nazi Germany, we did kind of discuss Nazi Germany losing some rare echelon troops, and actually at the end of the the last battles of World War II. Kingdom of Greece, we had Kingdom of Greece already. Kingdom of Hungary, actually part of Austria-Hungary, so they're obviously going to get their share. Kingdom of Italy captured. The Netherlands bought. Ottoman Empire, the Ottoman Empire, which actually bought and Lend-Lease, I guess. The Second Polish Republic, compensation and war reparations. Kingdom of Romania converted to the 7.654mm R, which is actually a Russian cartridge, and had a metal belt feeding system and fitted with a larger water jacket. The state of Slovenes, Croats and Serbs, known as the Austro-Slovenian conflict in Croatia, later passed on to the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. And I don't get that. You can't pass it on to a country that's basically still the country, but Yugoslavia is a bit more than Sloves, Croats and Serbs, so it's going to have Bosnians and stuff, so I could kind of see that. Kingdom of Serbia probably captured. Sweden, the Schwarzlose, model 1914 yet again. Kingdom of Yugoslavia passed on, and Yugoslavia, which was actually used by partisans in World War II. And finally used by the Jewish partisans during the 1947-1948 Civil War in Mandatory Palestine. So that's basically it. It fought until the 1915. A gun that would fire, fire and fire again. A cheap gun, a reliable gun, and obviously a patented gun with a delayed blowback system. This was the Schwarzlose 1907/12. Oh boy, that was long, but we made it. Hope you enjoyed, and I hope you learned something. 45 minutes, that is a first, but anyway, hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something.